Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, October 19th, 2017. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Porch Meads with Steve. Steve Wilkes and I relax after shooting video episodes and sample some of his delicious honey-based beverages. He gives us some tips on how we can brew something similar. If you go to basicbrewing.com, you can find archives of our audio and video shows, our DVDs, our brewers' logbooks, and other basic brewing gear. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Basic Brewing, and find our show page on Facebook. Thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon shopping, think of us first, and click on our associate link on basicbrewing.com. It won't cost you any extra, and you'll be helping us to bring you the show. We greatly appreciate your support. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site as well. We have a cool basic brewing app on iTunes and Amazon.com, and we're found all over the place where fine podcasts are served up. And if you do us the favor of rating us on iTunes and maybe leaving a nice comment, that'll help new listeners find us. And finally, if you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our virtual guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support, and thanks to everybody who's done so already. A lot of generous folks out there. I want to start out by jumping into the mailbag this week. You remember a letter from Joe in Portland a few weeks ago? Joe and his wife were expecting a child and anticipating having less time for brewing. Joe asked if the 15-minute boil technique that I've been using for pale ales could be applied to styles other than pale ales. Well, I was skeptical because I didn't know how well the hop character would go with, say, a stout or a porter or something like that. Well, Joe sends in an update. Joe says, "My wife and I welcomed our son Lucas into the world on September 10th. He was 7 pounds, 10 ounces. Congratulations, guys. And I have to say, being a dad," Joe says, "so far is awesome. I also ended up brewing a 15-minute extract raspberry stout just before he was born, and it really turned out excellent. The keg is already empty, which may more have to do with celebrations for my son being more than more than the quality of the beer. The beer had a very roasty chocolate aroma, and luckily not too strong of a hop presence. It was actually one of the best stouts I've brewed." Joe says, anyway, the recipe was as followed. Steeping grains, 0.5 pounds black patent, 0.75 pounds black barley, 0.7 pounds UK chocolate, and 0.5 pounds flaked barley. 7 pounds of dark liquid malt extract, and 1 ounce of Northern Brewer hops, 15-minute edition, and this is 15 minutes is the whole boil, and 1 pound of raspberry Cascade candy syrup at flame out. That sounds delicious. Congratulations, Joe, on both the baby and the beer. I used Joe's original question as inspiration for brewing my 15-minute Saison, which also turned out great and will be the subject of a future Basic Brewing video. Here's another 15-minute brew letter from the Pacific Northwest that I got, I think, maybe on the same day as that letter from Joe. Coincidentally, Garrett from Olympia, Washington writes, "Just wanted to let you know that you inspired me with 2 of your recent recipes, the 15-minute extract pail and the hop stand pail. I've been doing hop stands in my IPAs for a couple years now with great results. With an empty keg but little time to brew, I decided to make the best of things and take some shortcuts. So I combined the 15-minute boil extract method with the 30-minute hop stand and cranked out a Centennial Simcoe Hoppy Pale Ale in no time." Garrett says around 2 hours from start to cleanup. "I was not disappointed with the results. Really, if I didn't know it was a short boil extract already, I never would have guessed." Awesome. Well, thanks, Garrett. That sounds really tasty and a great way to put a bunch of hoppiness into a keg in a short period of time. I love this positive feedback loop that we've got going in home brewing now. You know, one brewer tries something different and shares it with the community, usually over the internet, and then another takes that idea, builds on it, and shares it back again to the community. I also love the idea of playing with short boil times with extracts in styles that I hadn't thought of before. So that's one of my goals is to play with that. Now let's have a word from our sponsors, Desiree and Dave from High Gravity in Tulsa. The weather is cooling off outside. Fermentation spaces inside are cooling off too. It's getting to be prime time to brew. Why not upgrade your brewing gear and step into an electric brewing system with a Warthog controller from High Gravity in Tulsa? I spent a lot of time talking about my electric brew-in-a-bag system, but High Gravity has 3-tier systems too. The Build Your Own Electric Brewing System feature on HighGravityBrew.com lets you customize your system to fit your needs. High Gravity offers systems from 5 gallons to 2 barrels. You can choose from a wide variety of Warthog controllers that control your heat and your pumps. Pick the one that is right for you. And if you use the code EBC75BB, you can save $75 off your electric gear purchase. Take the pain out of propane. Go electric at family-owned and operated HighGravityBrew.com. That's HighGravityBrew.com. And it's fun to just go on there and, use it like the wish book that used to come, the catalog that used to come. Just go on there and kind of play with the Build Your Own Electric Brewing System feature on HighGravityBrew.com. Okay, if you follow our video episodes, you saw the one posted on Friday where Steve showed how to start a Melomel. Well, on the day we shot that, we also shot 2 other video shows. So afterwards, we decompressed on the porch to talk about how Steve's brew shop is going and to get some tips from Steve on how he formulates the recipes and makes these delicious honey beverages. Steve Wilkes, welcome back to the porch.
Thanks, James. It's a pleasure to be on your porch.
Now, first off, we got some meads to taste, and it's been a while since we did a Steve mead update, so I kind of wanted to catch up because you've been doing a lot of meads lately, meads and sizers, and really doing some delicious stuff. But I got to ask you first of all, how's the shop going? How's Steve's brew shop going?
It's really going well. The reception from the local community has been great. Business is good. Like any retailer, it could be better, but it's very good, and I'm very happy with the reception and the response that I get from folks. I have a lot of folks that come in that haven't been in a year or two, and they are very happy to come into the store and shop with me. Online is picking up. It's a slow growth thing, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that 5% of my revenue is now online revenue. Huh. So that's significant. I'm really happy about that, and I'm happy to help folks. I had a guy in Dallas call me the other day for some imperial yeast. He had listened to the podcast. He heard the interview that we did. You did, actually. And he was intrigued and tried to find it in Dallas and couldn't. Huh. And he called me and got him squared away. So I'm really tickled to be able to do that. What I find now that I've owned the store for almost a year, in fact, a year this month, what I like most about this is helping people discover the hobby or go a little further down the road with it. Of course, there are brewers here in Northwest Arkansas who are magnificently good brewers. For those guys and women, I'm very happy to be able to supply them with really good product, really fresh grains, fresh hops, fresh yeast. It makes me feel good when somebody walks in and wants, the Saison 2, and I have it. It's like, it makes me feel bad when I don't, but I really get a kick out of trying to anticipate people's needs and meeting them. And I think I get a bigger kick out of the guy or woman who comes in and says, I've always wanted to make wine. I don't know how to do it. I don't know anything about it, or mead or beer. And to be able to give them a helping hand, to supply them with the things they need, and to tell them about the things they don't need. There are lots of places that you can buy. Let's face it, the stuff I sell is a commodity. You can buy grain almost anywhere. You can buy yeast from a lot of different places. What you can't buy is somebody that's going to be honest with you and tell you what you need and tell you what you don't need, so that you get the right thing at the right time. And I find that to be very satisfying. That's the best part of my day.
That's the value of a local homebrew club or homebrew store, wherever you are, if you're lucky enough to have one. And I've spent a lot of time in the store getting recipes and such, or put together recipes and such. And I've leaned on you for help in designing recipes, as other people have as well. I mean, people can walk in and they can say, "Steve, I want to make a porter,"
yep.
And you'll just help them come up with the one. What do you like? You like this? You like that? And I've done the same thing. I've walked in and I said, I want to make an American Pilsner. It was the last thing I said. What do you think on the hops? What do you think of the? And we just kind of brainstorm a little bit, and we just come up with a recipe right there. And so you are a resource intellectually as well as for the physical stuff. So
well, I think the nice thing is that you can rely on the 20 years of me learning how to do this, so that you don't have to take 20 years to learn how to do it. But it is, I get a big kick out of that. And my phone, I use some brewing software on my phone, and I have about 100 recipes now on there that are assigned to a specific person. Yeah. So Joe Blow's porter and Mike Long's Wicked Ale, whatever it is, and so we design the recipe. I get the ingredients together for them. I walk them through what to do and all of that, and then I email the recipe to them before they even leave the store. It's on their phone or on their desktop before they leave, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, awesome. So I had to check in because it's people ask in emails and in comments on our videos and things like that. So I thought I'd get that out of the way. But we have in front of us, we just shot 3 video episodes. For those who like the video episodes, we shot 2 episodes of Basic Brewing video, one with a couple of my beers and one starting a Melomel. Yep. And then we did an episode for your channel on starting a Sizer, which I'm really excited about. But we've got some of the finished product right here in front of us. Shall we? Let's do a little mead update here.
Yeah.
And we've got some of your finished products. Let's taste them. Some of one of these you say is like a few years old.
Yeah.
Where do we want to start? Do we want to start with Chase's?
Let's start with this is a lemon and ginger mead that I don't have the notes in front of us. This is a very impromptu session.
Right. Yeah, I sprung this on you. It's not fair, but I'm doing it.
That's okay. So this is a 2.5 gallon batch of mead. It's my son Chase Holloman's first mead. It's the very first one he's made on his own. He designed the recipe. I did help him, meaning I made sure he knew when to do what. But this is his mead, a 2.5 gallon batch. It's a 7.2% ABV mead, and it's flavored with lemon and ginger, which he used about 2 ounces in the 2.5 gallon batch of each extract. A 2 ounce portion of lemon extract and a 2 ounce portion, it is our 4th show, of ginger extract. So let's try this.
And these are the brewer's best extracts, and they have no fermentables. So the advantage of that is that you can mix them at bottling time to flavor, to taste, and that way you don't have to worry about fermentables being in there, and continuing to work after you pitch the extract. So it's a nice pale yellow color, and it smells great. It smells as I said on the video episode, if you use too much lemon, you can get on over into the lemon pledge category. Yeah. It's like you're polishing the furniture in the 70s. Yeah. But this is nicely balanced. It's nicely delicate. I get more lemon than I do ginger, and we've managed not to make a Marianne joke so far. But I think Chase did a really good job in crafting this mead.
He did, and he was really excited to do it. I'm just tickled pink, and he took it. A little anecdote here. He took it to a dinner party that one of his coworkers was hosting, and this fellow, the coworker, is sophisticate. He likes meads. He's traveled a lot. He's had a lot of commercial meads around the world, or at least the States. I don't know the guy. But Chase came home and he was just glowing, or came to the shop and he said, "Oh, I shared my mead at the store," and his buddy said that's one of the best he's ever had in his life, and he's drank a lot of these things around the country. So that made me feel really good. It made him feel good. It's a nice light recipe. I'll try to get the recipe from him and cook it up and put it on the website. In fact, we'll do that with all these. I think none of them are on yet, so these are all new except for the one which is really old.
On Steve's Brew, if you go to stevesbrewshop.com, you can search for these. Yeah. Did you say what kind of honey he used?
We just use the Brewer's Best honey that I sell. Okay. Just the regular. It's a blended wildflower honey. I'm sure there's a lot of clover honey in there too. It is a commercial honey, meaning that it's blended to be consistent. So it's not a wild one-off. The bees ate this time of year or that time of year. It's a blended honey so that you get a consistent result. Brewer's Best is the brand. It comes in 2 pound or 12 pound containers. As I recall, I believe we either used 5 or 6 pounds, and 6 makes sense, meaning that it would be 3 of the containers. That would make sense to me. And I remember that he used some yeast nutrient and yeast energizer, a little acid blend, and I'm almost certain that we used some wine tannin in this as well. Huh. So that's the mead. It's very simple, but I think delicious.
Yeah, and it's well balanced. I think that you're really good. You're really good at using the acid blend and such. And I haven't gotten too much into that yet. You're miles ahead of I as far as or of me as far as mead making goes, because I've made some good meads, and I think I will continue to make some good meads. But yours, I think, are more delicate and interesting and kind of layered and balanced. And mine's like, oh, that's good. Tastes like honey.
Yeah, but you know what? That's a skill too. I mean, to make just a straight ahead, nowhere to hide. It's like making a really nice American lager. There's nowhere to hide. You can't cover up anything wrong with anything because it's just bare naked. And so don't sell yourself short, because you have made some wonderful meads. I remember there was kind of a Christmas mead that you did with a lot of dried fruit. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah, well, I remember it. And I remember you bringing it out after it was about a year old. So we made it for the show. We made it for a Basic Brewing episode. And then you brought it out about a year later, and we had it at one of your dinner parties, and it was just like, holy cats. It was really good. So, and then, of course, you made the mead for my wedding. So the day that James found out I was getting married to my lovely wife, Gretchen, he went home and made a 5-gallon batch of mead, which we stayed engaged for almost a year. About a year, yeah, I guess. And then, so at our wedding, we drank that mead during the ceremony as the toast, and then we all enjoyed it at the reception and otherwise. And it was really good.
It was really good, and it was a sparkling mead, and it was very champagne-y. Mm-hmm. And it was a kit that I bought from Andy's store, the home brewery back then. Yep. And I'm trying to remember back. It seemed like, did it have some oak chips in it? Or do you recall?
I don't for sure, but I think it was oaked.
Yeah, but it was a sparkling mead. And the Air Force is flying over.
Uh-oh.
Something's going on.
It's 5 o'clock, Charlie.
Help the bombardier. But it was very champagne-y because the character was kind of white winey, and then it was very sparkling, and I think Gretchen called it magic mead at the time. And didn't we have like a bottle of that on your 10th anniversary or something? Yes. I kept one for like a decade.
Yes, we did. You kept one, and we did have it on our 10th anniversary, and it was even better.
Yeah, I think it was just as good, which is a testament that meads don't have to be complicated to be good. Right. You can just have honey and water and the proper nutrients. I think the nutrients were included with the kit and all that. You just got to treat it well and make sure the yeast is happy. That's the most important thing. as we keep saying on these things.
Yep.
But of course, I've made some ones that weren't so good that tasted like rubber band, over the years, and I think that's an indication of what happens when you don't treat the yeast well, because they get stressed out and they put out all these nasty rubber bandy flavors, and it can really be a detriment to the product. So anyway, so we're on you've poured us our second sampling here.
Second sampling. So now we're on to this tart cherry mead. Both of these are very new meads, and I happen to remember that this particular cherry mead I put together on May the 26th, and I bottled it on July the 6th or 7th, and here we are on September the 18th drinking it, and it's very nice, I think. It's almost 11%. It's like 10.7 something percent. You wouldn't know it, but it is. I used, I don't remember the recipe exactly, but I used a 32-ounce jar of tart cherry juice for my fruit, and I put it in during the primary. So there are reasons to add fruit in the primary or the secondary. Generally, it's better to add them in the secondary because you get a jammier, a truer fruit flavor. But in this case, I was really after a kind of dry, light red wine effect. And so by fermenting the cherry juice as well, not just adding it as a flavoring, I achieved that. And so I think that this mead drinks a lot like a very light Pinot Noir. It definitely has wine tannin in it. I used some pectic enzyme. I don't know if I needed to do that or not with the cherry juice, but I did. Yeast energizer, yeast nutrient, some acid blend at bottling, and I know I used some acid blend, but I can't remember if I added it at the beginning or at bottling. And there are reasons to use acid blend to control pH, but there are other reasons to use it as a flavoring, to perk the mead up so that it's not flabby. And at my level, I generally use it as a perker. I don't really worry too much about pH. I just don't go there. So that's the mead, and it's nice. It's kind of a ruby color. It's very light. It drinks a lot smaller than it is.
The Blue Jay likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we drank it on the episode that we shot, and I was amazed that you said it was 10+% ABV, because it's very, overused word warning, drinkable. Usually when you get meads that are really big in alcohol, they're really big in sweetness and really, thick in body, and they're more desserty, I would think, or at least in my experience. This one is not. It does have a fairly substantial body. If you look at the glass, it does have some legs to it, but it's not syrupy. It's not. It's very drinkable. I think I said on the video podcast that whereas most sort of 10%, dessert meads, you drink a small glass of it with dessert or something like that. This I could dangerously drink a pint of it without a problem. It's very tasty.
Well, it only has. I did back sweeten it, but I only back sweetened the 3-gallon batch with 5 ounces of honey. So it has a touch of back sweetening. And of course, if you're going to back sweeten a mead or cider or wine, you have to stabilize it with some potassium sorbate. And I also use a little Camden tablet of potassium metabisulfite. So I use the two in conjunction. I just like that. And that way you are confident that the wine won't come back to life, or mead in this case, won't come back to life in the bottle and either make a spritzy or carbonated beverage that you didn't want, or in the worst case, blow the corks or blow the bottle. Right. So had I wanted to make this into a sparkling mead, I could have used that same 5 ounces approximately, not sulfated the mead, bottled it in in beer bottles with caps, and we would be drinking a sparkling mead right now.
Huh. Of course, you want to be really careful when you're doing that.
Very careful. You want to know what you're doing. Yeah.
But so when you back sweeten things, do you do it to taste? I mean, did you taste some of the finished product here and then think, oh, well, it's pretty good. I'll put this much in. And then can you, when you back sweeten, can you mix in the additional honey and then take a taste and taste through that process?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how I do it. So the first thing I do is stabilize it with those two chemicals. You make a little cocktail in about 8 ounces of clear, pre-cooled water. Again, the better the water, you shouldn't just pull tap water, but filtered water is fine. And then let that set for a day, because if there's any active fermentation going on, you won't stop that fermentation. It will finish that fermentation. And then, so after a day's time goes by, then you're safe to go ahead and begin the back sweetening process. You definitely want to be careful. It's a lot like salt. You can put it in, but you can't take it out.
Right.
So you're well advised to go slow, a little at a time, and trust your taste buds. It's probably a good idea if you can have some friends over to do that with 3 or 4 other people, or 2 or 3 other people at least, so that you get a little consensus about it. If you can't, you can't. You just have to trust yourself. But which is what I did. But nonetheless, you just don't want to dump a pound in or a jar. Well, I got a jar of honey, I'm going to dump it in there. You don't want to do that, because again, you might have too much, and then it is cloying and sweet. And unfermented honey in the mead, if there's too much of it, can taste unfinished. It tastes like you just dumped some honey in it, which is exactly what you did. Up to a point, that's perfectly okay. But once you throw it out of balance, I think it's just like beer. It's just like brewing a beer. Once you throw it out of balance with itself, it's not as good. Whether it's hops or grain, whatever it might be. But just like a really well-made big IPA, if it's too sweet, it's not quite right. If it's too hoppy, which is hard to do in a big IPA, but nonetheless, if you don't have the malt backbone to support the hops, you got a problem. The same thing with, I think the exact same rules hold with back sweetening a mead.
That's an interesting point, because some of the local honey that we had today that you're mixing together for these products, there was a honeycomb character to one of them, kind of a really raw honey character that I think, especially something as refined as this, would be really out of place. So maybe you also need to examine the character of the honey that you use for back sweetening to make sure that it's not something that kind of would clash with what you got.
I completely agree with that. If you have just some honey in the closet, and maybe it's buckwheat honey, which is like the biggest, darkest, blackest honey you can get, it's probably not appropriate for most anything for back sweetening. It might be appropriate to make a bouquet, the burnt honey mead with, but it wouldn't be appropriate, say, to back sweeten a delicate, kind of a red winey sort of mead like this. So yeah, and really a lot of times the way to go about it, and the more economical way to go about it, would be to use a honey like that Brewer's Best honey that I happen to sell. It's a really good honey. It is a blended honey. It's very consistent. You can make the base mead with that, and then you can come back and do the finishing honey or the back sweetening honey with maybe some really nice orange blossom or Tupelo, or I happen to have scored some blackberry honey from some folks here in Fayetteville have a blackberry farm. And they said, well, we have some honey. And I said, well, I will buy it and sell it on your behalf. And I'm almost out of it, but it's really, really nice. And so you want to kind of let that honey shine out, and you don't want to cover it up, say, with a lot of fruit. You want to let that be what it is. Shall we move on?
Yes. Now we've got this one we might have. Do you want to save that one for last, since it's the oldest?
But I'm thinking it's the driest.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm thinking we might want to switch gears a little bit. We probably should have started with this one.
Oh,
to be honest, because it's the driest mead. And I happen to know we have 2 left here. We have a ginger lavender mead that I made 4 to 6 years ago. James just happened to have a bottle of it.
I can't believe it's been that long.
I remember the tag.
It's been in the back of the fridge, because whenever Steve gives me something special like this, I fall into the same trap that a lot of people do when they have a beer fridge a magic beer fridge or something like that, where it's like, oh, I've got all these beers that are special things, and I don't want to just drink them, and so they sit in the fridge, in the back of the fridge, until you're waiting for a special occasion. And now I guess it's the special occasion. I can't believe that it's been that long. You've got to be kidding. Wow, let me finish the rest of this. This is delicious. Now, okay.
I don't remember the recipe much, but I remember making it, and I remember that the inspiration from it came from I don't even know what to call it. It was a cocktail mix that I found at a local store, actually a gardening store of all things. But they had these little like maybe 12 or 20 ounce bottles, and of these flavored. I wouldn't even call them extracts because they were too thin for that, maybe. But this particular one was a lavender and ginger cocktail base, and you're supposed to mix it with, say, rum or vodka or something like that, and put some lime in it, and an umbrella, and you'd have this drink. And I thought that would make a nice mead, and I was really interested in the lavender. So I came home and I made this batch, and as I recall, it was a 5-gallon batch, and I think it was because there was a lot of it. I still probably have a case.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at the house somewhere. So there was a lot of it, and I had completely forgotten about it until very recently. Ran across these cases that were sealed up in my wine closet, and I haven't had any of this in some years. But I sent some out to my wife's family reunion in Portland about 6-8 weeks ago now. I shipped them out a whole case of mead, which was great fun for them. And a bottle or two of this went along, and the consensus was this was their favorite.
Oh.
So we'll see. We'll see what we think of it.
Oh, wow. I'm intrigued, and I'm a little embarrassed that it's taken me this long to drink it, but I think you should take it as a compliment.
Oh, I do.
Because it was like, oh, this is something, the precious. It's nice and clear.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh. Hey, that's pretty good.
You talk, I'm drinking.
Boy, I get a little ginger bite. The lavender is there. It's not overly pronounced, but it's definitely there. The honey notes are still very, very nice. It's just a little bit effervescent, and I'm sure that's because I didn't stabilize it. Back some years ago, I didn't stabilize anything, so it may have come back to life just ever so slightly. So it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not sparkling, but it has just a touch, maybe like those little Portuguese white wines that are just ever so slightly spritzy. That's how this is. It's very clear, a very pale straw color. Wish we had View-O-Vision. If only there were a device that you could see pictures. But
it's hard to drive, though.
It's hard to drive. TV. Man, this is pretty good. What do you think?
It's delicious. The neighbor's dog likes it. Wow. It does have a teeny bit of lavender. The ginger, there's a ginger bite. You're right. But there is a honey character in there that is almost kind of that raw honey thing. It's not quite the honeycomb kind of character, but it's nice and sweet tasting, but it's really light in body. You get the honey character, and that's kind of a trick, I think, is you get the honey character without it tasting like you're eating just honey. So do you remember how you added the ginger and the lavender?
Well, the lavender came from this commercial product that I bought.
Oh, so you actually got that stuff.
I got that stuff, and I just put it in. I mean, it literally, and I'm sure I put it in the primary. And it had little bits of lavender floating around in it. It was like kind of a hipster thing, And I just said, well, I'm going to make mead with this and see what I get. And it was a ginger and lavender elixir, but I know that I added additional ginger. And as I recall, I just sliced some raw ginger and put it in to the secondary. Yeah, I remember that now. And then eventually bottled it. I didn't stabilize it. I meant for it to be a still mead, and it is. That's what I remember.
Now I have to tell on you a little bit because there is some sediment on the bottom of the bottle, and it's kind of fluffy sediment. But you have we've had a conversation on this since then, but you've learned since then the trick to not have that. Can you talk about the process that you went through? Why you have sediment, say, in this one, and there's no sediment at all in the other two?
I probably, first of all, like the technical term for this is schmutz.
There's a little schmutz.
There's a little schmutz in there. And, really it's probably the lavender, little bits of lavender that have since turned into almost a powder, I guess, And really the sin was not letting it clear completely before I bottled it, and probably racking it too close to the schmutz, to the stuff, to the lees at the very bottom. So I probably got a little greedy and pulled too much off. I'm certain I bottled it too quickly as well. But since then, the technique that I use now is, one, to have patience. That's the first thing. But I also almost always use a fining agent before I bottle the mead. And the fining agent can be a product called Sparkleoid, which I happen to like. There's another one called Dual Fine, and there are these are brands, so there are other versions of these. But the stuff I sell is called Dual Fine, and it's kind of like what you get in a wine kit. It's a silica thing, and you put it in. The beautiful thing about the Dual Fine is that it works in about 48 hours. Like you put it in, and a day or two later, and it's ready to go. Sparkleoid takes about a week to 10 days before it to drop bright, is my little term. There are other things you can use. Bentonite clay works, even gelatin, which is very common in beer. All these things can help clear the mead out. But again, patience and time is probably your best friend. But at bottling, or within a reasonable moment before bottling, I generally do fine the meads. You can also cold crash them. And, go ahead if you've got the ability to do that, whether it's the time of year that outside is appropriate or you have a fridge big enough to do that with. You can cold crash it like a lot of brewers do with their beers. And then don't be greedy. Leave a little for the angels. Because if you get right on the bottom and you start sucking up the stuff that you meant to leave behind, it's going to be in your bottles. And that's what's in this bottle. And also, to be honest with you, it's also in this pomegranate.
It's more compact on there.
Yeah. And so, but again, it doesn't hurt anything.
No.
You just have to decant it when you serve it.
It's a cosmetic thing. And I think the difference between, a lot of times I'll probably bottle beer before I'm really supposed to, because I'm like in a hurry. And I think because it's a bottle conditioned beer,
right.
People are expecting some trub and a little bit of sediment in each bottle, and it's no big deal.
Right.
With this is more considered a wine product, and you don't have sediment in the bottle of wine,
right?
So it may, for cosmetic purposes and for practical purposes. You want to get every last drop of this from each of these bottles.
Yep.
It's something that you want to have a little bit more patience before you package it and before you move it on to the next step.
Absolutely. I mean, if you really, really wanted to get serious about it, there are filtration machines, that you can filter the wine or the mead, send it through some little, they're paper, I think, little pads. You can filter it to where there's nothing left in it. Commercial breweries. I actually had a customer in a few days ago, and he was talking about the beers that he had made, and he was disappointed in them because he didn't think they were clear enough. Yeah. And we talked about it for a while, and he wanted to know what he had done wrong. I didn't hear that he had done anything wrong, but he was comparing it to factory beers. Yeah. And I said, well, there's, a lot of factory beers are put in a centrifuge. There's they're filtered mechanically. There's all kinds of things that a big brewery can do that you can't do, and you'll never be able to do. So don't worry about it. And really, the end of the conversation was, well, did the beer taste good? And he's like, yeah, it was really good. I said, then shut your eyes and think of England, you know.
Think of English ales.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from the same place because, time will do a lot of things. You know, like I had a cream ale the other day in a bottle that had been in there a while, and it was crystal clear. And I'm sure that it wasn't crystal clear when I bottled it. But you know what? A lot of times I think, I've had discussions with professional brewers, and they talk about big hoppy IPAs or pale ales or whatever, and they're worrying about filtering out hop flavor, when as they're making the beer more clear. So I'm in the position, especially as a home brewer, where, especially if I'm not going to enter a contest or anything like that, to me the flavor. Appearance does count.
Yeah.
But to me, the flavor is and the aroma, and those are more tangible to me, more valuable.
It's just my underwear. I'm trying to readjust.
Trying to disguise that. You're using the it's the Flintstones bottle opener there. Or the corker. I'm not a wine guy. Corkscrew, that's what it is. My God.
Didn't mean to do that. You need to get some WD-40 on there.
A little bit.
But anyway, I'm very happy with this. This lavender ginger mead has held up very well, and a good argument for always sequestering a few bottles of your mead in particular, where I wouldn't necessarily do that with a beer.
Yeah.
I've got a beer kit, just as a digression here, a tangent. There's one of my kits. It's a really good kit. It's all about hop flavor and aroma. It's not about bitterness. I brewed the kit up recently, about 3 months ago. We brewed it. We enjoyed it. It was wonderful. I opened a bottle the other day. I had a few bottles left. I opened it. I poured it out and poured the rest of them out because the beer wasn't bad. It had not oxidized yet, but all of that hop aroma and flavor was gone. And because of the way the kit's designed, it's mostly late additions, there wasn't a bitterness to kind of hold it up.
Right.
So it was a really interesting moment for me, actually. And but with mead, I think it's just the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think you can cellar your meads. You don't have to worry about the hop bitterness falling out. You and I had the disaster show where we tasted beers that I had in the basement forever.
Yeah.
And they were just syrupy.
Yeah.
Just all the bitterness, all the hop character was gone completely.
Yeah.
However, yesterday I recorded the interview with Brian Sorensen, the author of Arkansas Beer, and I pulled remember the beer that I fermented with the dregs of an Orval?
Yes.
I've got a bunch of those in the basement, and we tasted one. I wish I had another cold because it's delicious now.
Wow.
It went from tasting like feet to now it tastes like an Orval. It tastes like you get that Brett character from it. This is a tangent, but anyway.
Well, that's what this whole show's a tangent.
That's right. It's just it's porch talk.
Yeah.
Porch talk. We even have a dog here.
Yeah.
If she knew how to speak, I'd have her speak. Okay, what's the last thing we got?
Okay, the last one, this is back to this is that pomegranate mead that I made earlier. I guess it's about 6 months old now, something like that, maybe a tad older. So again, I don't have the notes in front of me, but 3-gallon batch, quite a bit of honey. I don't remember the ABV on this. I do remember that I had found some pomegranate syrup from Lebanon, and it was really meant to make, again, cocktails with. I think that's really, or to cook with, or make pastries with. And so I thought, well, that'll make mead. I'll just try that. And so this is that mead. I do remember that I back sweetened it fairly heavy, so it's pretty sweet, and that I added a few ounces of a concentrated pomegranate concentrate. So concentrated pomegranate juice, not sweetened, to kind of try to bring some of the pomegranate flavor back to it, because I felt like the pomegranate syrup that I put in initially, I lost a lot of the flavor of the pomegranate that it kind of fermented out. So this is that mead.
Cheers.
Cheers. Also, it has 4 ounces of ginger extract in it. I remember that now. As soon as I tasted it.
It's a common theme.
Yeah, I like ginger.
Boy, I like Marianne. That's just for Bob Stimsky. Boy, it smells really good.
Cats. That's really good.
I remember, before I tasted it, I remember when I first initially tasted this, it was big and bold, and, it's a sipper. It's not one that you wanted like...
This isn't a pint.
This is not like the cherry one where I would go gulp, gulp, gulp and have a bbig time. This one is one that, at the time, I wanted to sit and think about, because I was getting flavors like tobacco, and you think pomegranate, you think it's going to be fruity and all that, but there were lots of dark flavors. So I'm curious. You talk about what you're experiencing while I savor as well.
I think this mead has improved greatly. I didn't particularly like it at first, and because I thought it was kind of crude. It was kind of in your face, the flavors were. This has mellowed a lot. I think it's more drinkable. I still get those tobacco notes. I still get a little of that stone fruit. The ginger is there, but it's actually settled down quite a bit. I think this is enormously more drinkable than it was 4 or 5 months ago.
I agree, 100%. This is the most drink. I like this the best. All of these are good, but I like this the best on the table.
I do too. That's very interesting. I was thinking. I was sitting here doing the little math in my head, thinking which one of these are my favorite. This one's my favorite.
It's the sweetest, as in there's a lot more residual sugar. There is still the tobacco thing going on, and I don't know where that comes from, but there's that tobacco thing. But it has softened.
Yeah.
And it is a lot more drinkable right now.
Yeah.
And gosh, I just want some more. It's really good. I mean, I'm trying to search for words on, but why do you think that the pomegranate did any of the ingredients taste like tobacco going into it, or?
No. I mean, no, nothing about it. Nothing in my experience of making this would have predicted this kind of tobacco, leather. Mm-hmm. It's a very complicated drink.
It's a grown-up drink.
Yeah, there's a lot of flavors happening here. And I think that, I'm not stereotyping, but I think that 18-year-olds, might open this up and go, what?
Yeah.
But this is really good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I'm breaking my arm, patting myself on the back, but this is worth having. And thankfully, I still got maybe, 10 bottles left.
Wow.
So we'll visit it again in a few months.
Yeah, this is fun. I mean, this is wow. It's there was some fruitiness along with the tobacco and leather when we first tasted this, I think, but I think the fruitiness has dissipated. But it's refined now. You said it was more raw back then. I think that's right, and I would go with that. Man, that's good.
I wonder. I do remember that I back sweetened it pretty heavily, and again, don't hold me to it, but I think it was about 20 or so ounces of honey in a 3-gallon batch. So that's quite a bit. So it might be that raw honey has now kind of melded and softened. That might be what we're experiencing. But it just in general, it's so much more in balance with itself. Again, that's what I think is so important, whether it's beer or wine or mead or cider. It has to be in balance with its own universe, with its own being. And then you have something good, whether it's 10% or 3%. It has to be in balance. This is a really hard job.
Mondays the shop's closed. This is Monday. There are worse ways to spend your day off. And you're working.
I'm working.
Well, Steve, as usual, it's just fun to spend time with you, period. But then to learn from you, as I often do, it's a wonderful thing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, James. And I just want to say I appreciate everything you do with and for me. Appreciate your friendship. I appreciate the journey that we go on, because these shows aren't scripted. There's nothing faked here.
No.
It doesn't matter whether it's the video side or the audio side. We open it up and go, okay, this is what it is. So this is very interesting to me, and the journey of this is what's fun about this hobby. And I'm happy that other folks come along with us.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again to Steve. You can find his shop at stevesbrewshop.com. We are set to get together to shoot more videos this week, and among them is our annual Halloween episode with my Count Chocula Milk Stout. Is it delicious? Or is it not? Stay tuned. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to James at basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com, and please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our support link where you can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcast. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. Get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener with any DVD combo. You can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can find our logbooks where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer. Check all that out at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Schwinn Girls Thrasher Helmet Purple and Barry Lyndon Blu-ray DVD. It's one of those movies that I don't think I've ever seen, but I do remember the Mad Magazine parody. Thanks again, and remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly appreciate your support. Don't forget you can also join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associated links on basicbrewing.com. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.